Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of the Pinoy Step podcast. This is your ultimate tambayan for everything NBA, served with that signature Pinoy flair. I'm your host, Anton Rojas, and we have a very special episode today because the playoffs are finally here. We're going to talk about the pretenders and the contenders, and my partner here on the show is very excited because he is back and he is gaining a lot of, should I say, notoriety? Because it's definitely not popularity. Let's bring in
Never.
or bring back Mr. Christian Luanzon. Partner, it's good to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me, Anton. And I'm definitely a contender, never a pretender. Okay. Always straightforward. So, looking forward to this.
Hey, I got something for you today. I don't know if you know this, but I got
I'm
the
trying
Boston
not to notice.
You've known me for a while. You know that I am not a Boston fan, not really a Tatum fan, but because I just wanted to piss you off a little bit, put a fire underneath your belly.
I mean,
I'm rocking with
I'm
Boston
already
today.
allergic to the green here locally. Okay. Pati international, ganun din. Especially Boston. The only thing about Boston, just like what I said in I think episode 1, favorite team ng daddy ko yan. You know, he was a Larry Legend fan. So because of that, I give you my props.
Shout out to Mr. Luanzon. All right, we have a lot to talk about. I'm pretty sure Christian and I will be disagreeing on a lot of things. So let's get right to it. But of course, before we begin, we'd like to give a huge shout out sa lahat ng ating mga manonood, whether it is you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, and especially on TikTok. A lot of you guys seem to love Christian Luanzon on TikTok. So maraming salamat po. Let's get right to it.
From buzzer beaters to blockbuster trades, this is your front row seat to the NBA.
Here at Pinoy Step Podcast, we go deep into every play, every move, and the insider stories you won't hear anywhere else.
All the highlights, all the hot takes, walang mintis. This is the Pinoy Step Podcast, powered by the Arena Plus Sportsbook. Sama-sama sa arena.
So, for the first part of our show here on the Pinoy Step podcast, we'd like to call this segment the Fast Break, where we run down the top headlines that has been going around, that yung mga pinag-uusapan sa NBA, starting off with CP3, Chris Paul, 20th season in the NBA. And for the second time, partner, in his NBA career, he has played all 82 games and he started all 82 games as well. Hats off to Chris Paul, the point god. Man, bilib ako dito sa conditioning at disiplina ni Chris Paul.
Well, what a remarkable achievement. No? And the thing about Chris Paul, people always would wonder, especially sort of like in his twilight years. It's crazy to say that after you just saying that he started all 82 games.
Yeah.
But people are questioning why isn't he in a contending team? And because, ito yung purpose eh. Because he feels that he can still contribute to a team, not just be on a team, and play sparingly minutes, but really have a role. And especially having Wemby in the Spurs, he felt like, he could add more value to Wemby with those lobs and everything, which we saw, especially the first part of the season. But, it's just unfortunate what happened to Wemby.
Yeah.
I thought, if that did not happen, we would at least see the Spurs in a play-in, and then we would add more to this achievement by Paul. And marami rin siyang kasama rito, no? I mean, guys like Harrison Barnes, Buddy Hield, they're not in their 20th season, pero guys who also played all of the 22 games, Malik Beasley, Jarrett Allen, Mikal Bridges, and these are players at least who've been in the league for at least 5 years. So, grabe yun. 82 games, I can't imagine.
Sinabi ko nga kay Migs Gomez during episode 3, he was wearing a Victor Wembanyama t-shirt. Humaba yung career ni Chris Paul because he's teaming up with Wemby and yung arrival nitong si De'Aaron Fox. So huge shout out to CP3. I'm just gonna run down some of his top credentials. 12-time All-Star, 4-time All-NBA First Team, 2006 Rookie of the Year, 5-time assist leader, 6-time steals leader, 2-time Olympic gold medalist. The only thing missing, partner, is that
Championship ring.
championship.
And also, second, I believe, in behind John Stockton. Yeah, in the assist department. But the thing is, it's by a mile. I was just watching John Stockton highlights. 28 assists that one game. And then parang ang layo, no? Parang halos 3,000 assists. Nobody is touching John Stockton. Pero still, number 2 all-time si Chris Paul.
Let's go to our next headline at pinag-usapan din recently itong announcement. And this to me was pretty shocking because the 76ers of Philadelphia didn't do so well this year. They were decimated by injuries. Paul George, we thought that the Sixers were going to be a huge threat in the East, but he only played 41 games. Joel Embiid was limited to 19 games. Tyrese Maxey, they seemingly handed the keys to him, but even he got hurt. Played only 52 games. He's definitely the future. 24 games, but the topic was, yun nga, sinabi ni Daryl Morey na babalik siya.
Right.
Sinabi rin ni Nick Nurse that he would come back.
Yeah.
And to me, this is pretty shocking considering that Philadelphia didn't do so well.
To me, it's not because I think it's still worth to roll the dice once again because number one, injuries, obviously, it's the main reason. Embiid, he showed signs already during that Olympic run. He didn't play first few games or was limited to. Good thing he had that signature game, that comeback win against Serbia, wherein he played a vital role in the second half in that semis. And then Paul George, I mean, he's just been injury plagued pretty much his whole career. And then you hand the keys to Tyrese Maxey, and then suddenly you want him, to lead the charge among the three. I don't think it was realistic. The only issue to me with this extension or with them coming back, as you mentioned, is yung pag-extend nila kay Joel Embiid. Because he wasn't due for an extension. I think he had 2 more years on his deal and then they extended him. So they're locked him to in 5 more years. That to me is more of a surprise rather than Nick Nurse. He's a proven coach. Daryl Morey, proven manager, Houston Rockets, notable.
Tell that to James Harden.
Yeah. But I think it's worth to roll the dice once again. Pero next year, it's a different story. They have to be healthy. And I expect them to be at least in the second round.
Kumbaga, ngayong season, there is a pass because of the injuries.
Right.
So
especially to Embiid.
Yeah.
He's definitely their top dog among the 3.
So it's like
not Quentin Grimes.
It's like we want to see what you can do with a healthy roster. That's pretty much it.
Yes.
But Daryl Morey, I just have to say that right now his reputation is stained because of James Harden.
Right.
And James Harden's comments saying that Daryl Morey is a liar, and I never want to be part of the same organization that he is in. At tandaan natin, Daryl Morey turned James Harden into an MVP when he was in Houston. Actually, I want to rephrase that.
Go ahead.
He got, because the Harden fans might say that it was James Harden who turned himself into an MVP. Of course, the players put in the work and that's what they end up becoming. But Daryl Morey brought James Harden to Houston from OKC so he could have his own team, and he blossomed into a superstar. And then in Philadelphia, he brought, sinundo pa ni Daryl Morey si James Harden from the airport. So
the trade for Ben Simmons na ngayon magkasama na sila.
So I mean, it's pretty shocking that you go from being best buds to mortal enemies. It's really crazy. So I feel like Daryl Morey, the only way he can turn things around and fix his reputation is if he builds a contender in Philadelphia.
The good thing about it is that they're not in denial of this.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, I've always believed that if you could accept compliments, you should also be able to accept criticism and defeats. And let me quote him. He said, he acknowledged they're being underperforming and expressed empathy. Sabi niya, we expect more. We really feel for the fans who put their heart and soul into this team, and we know we've let you down. And I tell you, Philly fans, similar to the Nick fans, those are fans you don't want to let down, and they let that down this season. So they should rise back up next season kasi in-expect ng mga Philly fans yan.
So respect to that. Accountability is the word, and that's what Daryl Morey is taking right now with this really nightmare of a season with Nick Nurse and of course Paul George first season with Philadelphia. Moving on, this is a very heartwarming news. Chauncey Billups,
Yep.
okay, multi-year extension. And this is happening despite the fact that in his 4 seasons with Portland, they never advanced to the playoffs. Grabe yung tiwala nila kay Chauncey Billups. I feel like his basketball resume, his character as a coach, that's what gave him this new opportunity.
Well, the significant improvement, it really depends on the expectations. In Portland, I guess they weren't really expecting them at least to be a playoff team, maybe a play-in team. But, if you compare them from last season, they improved, to last year's 21 wins. And then since January 19, out of 40 games, they won 22 games. And more than that, if you've been following this team, like si Boss Ron, shout out Boss Ron.
Yeah, shout out to
The
Boss
number
Ron.
one Chauncey Billups fan that I know. Incredible story. And that's probably a story for another time. It was so good I had to tell my wife.
Yeah.
And then she was so amused by the story. But it all begins with leadership. Especially that head coaching job, that voice in the locker room, and Mr. Big Shot himself. Certainly, if you watch their games, I only got to watch a few, but you could just see the players' improvement, and the players as a team resulted into wins. Like I said, 22 and 18. What I want to see next year is the emergence of Scoot Henderson.
We've been waiting on Scoot.
Yeah, because it's been up and down for him, meaning he could have a game or two, with 35 points, 50% from the field, and then he would have a 12-point game, or he would be out for an injury. I think Scoot has all the tools to become at least an all-star in the league. Maybe that's next year. Maybe it's the next 2 seasons. But we'll see. But nonetheless, congratulations to Mr. Big Shot.
2004 NBA champion
I hate
Detroit
it.
winning over
I
his
hate it.
Lakers, Finals MVP that year,
Yep.
5-time All-Star,
Yep.
and of course his number 1 retired by
Yep.
the D.
Yep. Those stop and pop threes in transition na napakabagal na hindi tumatalon but would go in. I don't know how he does it. Man, I'm sorry for Karl Malone and Peyton. And si Peyton,
Yeah.
buti nanalo eventually.
Yeah, that hurt though. That hurt. They went to LA for the
Yeah,
championship.
but Malone got hurt. Let me say
Yes,
that.
he did.
Malone got hurt.
He did.
Yep.
Para sa ating susunod na headline dito sa ating Fast Break sa Pinoy Step Podcast, pag-usapan natin itong Battle of the Reserves where the Pacers erased a 27-point deficit against the number 1 ranked Cleveland Cavaliers in the East. Coach Rick Carlisle, I think for me, he's the guy that we can bring up here because 2011 NBA champion coach with Dallas. That team was amazing with Dirk, Jason Kidd,
Right.
Tyson Chandler, Deshaun Stevenson. You had the Matrix, Sean Marion as
The
your
team who
starting
beat the
five.
Heat. Yeah.
And he's still, one of the best coaches in the NBA up to this day.
One of the best minds in the game.
Mm.
And I had a chance actually to see him personally way up though in the China games. And I'll never forget that game for 2 reasons. You'll be surprised. It was a game against the Sixers at that time, preseason game in China. JJ Redick, who was playing for the Sixers at that time.
Oh, that was a
and I'm
good team.
JJ Redick fan
Mm.
since his Duke days.
Mhm.
He had, I think, 30 points on 80% shooting, made like 7 threes. That's why, if you can imagine, I was jumping up and down.
Yeah.
And then, seeing Rick Carlisle, because hindi ko siya makalimutan dahil, yun nga, no, yung that championship
Yep.
against the Heat, and you could credit, obviously, credit goes to guys like Nowitzki, guys you mentioned, JJ Barea, who was
Yeah.
an X factor.
Forgot about him. Sorry,
JJ
my bad.
Barea, if I don't think they would win that chip if not for JJ Barea. But Rick Carlisle and how he schemed, especially that game where LeBron, I think, scored 9 points. There was one game in that series that LeBron was held to single digits, I believe. I think it was game 2 or game 3. And then I thought, because of that performance, that defensive performance, it boosted their belief that they could really beat the more talented Miami Heat team.
So, ang kulang na lang dito kay Rick Carlisle in his return to Indiana, because prior to coming back in the 2021-2022 season, he was already coaching Indiana during Reggie Miller's time when Reggie was still playing, is a deep playoff run. And now they are entering the playoffs as the number 4 seed. They're gonna play Milwaukee. Feeling
Ganda yan.
ko masusubukan talaga itong coaching ni Coach Rick Carlisle.
Maganda yan. And you could say, we're going to talk about this more later, but that's an underrated playoff series because it's like a mini rivalry. But Rick Carlisle against Doc Rivers, 2 coaches who have won a chip already. It's going to be interesting.
Yep. And last year, they were in the conference finals. They beat Milwaukee in the first round. They beat New York in a 7-game series in the second round. But then, of course, got swept by Boston. Again, not really a Boston fan, just for the outfit for today.
But if you remember, each game was close, especially that game 2, that baseline out of bounds.
Yeah, there was
They
one
were
game
up
where
by 3.
Nemhard went crazy one game.
I think it was game 3 or 4. It was at home. But they had a game that got away.
Yeah.
And probably affected their next 2 home games. That they were up by 3, and then it was a baseline inbound, and then Jaylen Brown, hit a 3 in the left corner.
Yeah, that was the game where Nemhard went crazy because Tyrese Halliburton was not 100%. I don't even think he played in that game.
Yeah, something to revisit. But this game that you're talking about, 27-point deficit, it was really a meaningless game.
Give that Kenton Jackson shout out already.
Right? I mean, Miles Turner was the only one, and Nemhard was the only one who played among the starters, and they played less than 15 minutes. For Cleveland, it was Jarrett Allen, but Donovan Mitchell, Mobley, the Garlands, hindi sila naglaro. So, yan ang kinalabasan.
Speaking of Donovan Mitchell, he missed the last 4 games of the regular season.
He did.
Due to a left ankle sprain. So that's not a concern though, because reports are saying that he is training and getting back into game shape, and he will be ready for the playoff run of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Well, he's going to be critical because no matter how good Mobley and Garland have been all-star seasons, you could make a case Jarrett Allen could have been an all-star too, having 4 guys. But the top dog there is Donovan Mitchell. And he obviously, among all the players, he has the resume already. He's a proven playoff guy. Remember Bubble Mitchell?
Yeah,
just like he was Bubble Murray.
It's crazy. Donovan Mitchell, in his 8 seasons, including this one, has never missed the NBA playoffs. 5 seasons with Utah. This is his 3rd season now with Cleveland. And for the 2nd time in his career, he is entering the playoffs as part of the number 1 team in his conference. Because when he was in Utah, there was that 1 year
they were the number 1 team. Yeah.
Kaya lang, they got wiped out by Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers in the conference semifinals. So this is the year for redemption for Spida.
No question. And I think, individually, his numbers, are not staggering numbers, but you watch them play, they're just a different team when he's Spida Mitchell. When, I think right now he's about 23, 24 points per game, but we all know he's capable of dropping those 35, 40 points. He loves those moments. And I think it's going to be interesting to see who they play against in that first round. Because kung sino man yan, and I think I'm going to bet it's going to be the Orlando Magic. Okay? I think there's gonna be a little drama, maybe push them to at most 6 games. We talked about the Magic in
Yeah.
episode 1, how they impose their physicality, but I think in the end, Cleveland's gonna prevail.
Eto na. You just led into our next topic. I have the playoff bracket here, and we're gonna break everything down. But before we end our fast break, I got a question here for the most famous man on TikTok who is not on TikTok, who does not have a TikTok. And the question is,
I have many ears though.
and many players apparently who are following you online. My question to you is, Mr. Christian Luanzon,
Putting me on the spot, huh?
can Donovan Mitchell be the number 1 player on a championship team, yes or no?
On a championship team?
On a championship
I
team,
would
can he
say-
be the number 1 player?
No.
Whoa! Ha! Whoa!
No, because
Wow!
okay, you have to be champions of your conference first. Okay? And I
Alright.
think the East, it's still gonna be the jersey that you're wearing. Boston,
This
Ha-
year's the true test.
right? So having said that, and Boston has been rolling
Yeah.
the past 2 months. Okay? I think in the month of March, isang beses lang sila natalo. I don't really follow the East. So, but there's no question. There's no question that Tatum will be the best player in the East.
Alam mo, dahil sa comment mo ngayon, malalaman natin kung gaano karami yung fans ng Cleveland at ni Donovan Mitchell dito sa Pilipinas.
One thing's for sure, Boston has more fans than Cleveland.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So with that shade that you just directed at Donovan Mitchell,
Yeah,
we're gonna see how many people you anger.
Let me quote the former starting center of Chicago Bulls.
Okay.
Nobody's Joakim Noah. Do you hear anyone say that?
Oh my God, I know this.
I want to go to Cleveland.
I know this.
Di ba? So, alam ko medyo malayo, no, yung analogy, but you know the point that I'm getting to. But kidding aside, I think Boston still is the better team. I know they're the number 2 seed team. I expect them to meet in the East Finals.
Wow.
Push comes to shove, Game 7, but I still think it's going to be Boston in 7.
All right, we'll take a deeper dive with our playoff matchups on the second part of our Pinoy Step podcast episode 4 with Anton Rojas and Christian Luanzon. So stay tuned for that. Pinoy Step Podcast is brought to you by Arena Plus Network, your ultimate fast break to NBA action. Stay updated with the latest takes by subscribing to the Arena Plus Network and Pinoy Step Podcast YouTube channel. Listen and rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Your support is like a perfect assist. It helps keep the show going. Sama-sama sa Arena. Nagpapatuloy ang ating mainit na usapan dito sa Pinoy Step Podcast. Anton Rojas here alongside Mr. Christian Luanzon. At ngayon, pag-uusapan natin ang NBA playoffs because everything is set. We're going to talk about the contenders and the pretenders. But before we get to the matchups, we'd like to bring up what happened during the last game day of the regular season. 15 games, but the game that really stood out in the minds and hearts of NBA fans was that matchup between the Los Angeles Clippers and the Golden State Warriors.
What a game that was. Top 5 to me this season in terms of best games of the season. Top 5 in terms of how they competed. And this is, you got to give the NBA props, no, for the play-in. Because if there was no play-in format, I don't think that game would have been as competitive as it was. Pwede na lang kasing mamili ng teams in a way. No? But because you want to avoid the play-in to get some rest. No? And the rest is quite significant. We're talking about days. So what a game that was. I thought the Warriors let that slip away. A lot of people, including myself, expected it to be a Warriors-Lakers matchup. If the Warriors won, it would have been Warriors LA,
Yeah.
which I predicted, by the way, Lakers number 3 or number 6 yung hinahabol nila. Episode 1, balikan niyo yun. Okay? To avoid OKC.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
At
did
that-
say that. You
At
did
that
say
time,
that. Yeah.
I think the Lakers were at the 2 seed, pero feeling ko iniiwasan nila ang OKC even though they won back the first game of a back-to-back, 10 days ago. But going back to that game, I thought, the Warriors let this slip away because they were, if you saw the game, they were up by 4 after that Steph Curry 3, less than 2 minutes remaining in the game.
Yeah, and he even shimmied, right?
He did. I mean, it was not the night, but the shimmy is as good enough of a signature. And anytime Steph Curry does it.
That's the prelude to the night.
And then, but the defensive lapse, to me, everybody's gonna magnify on the Draymond Green miss.
Oh,
And
yeah,
rightfully so.
yeah.
Rightfully so. But to me, as a coach, what should be more magnified was when they were up by 4 and how quickly James Harden got to the basket, going towards his left hand, his strong hand, from the right side, going to his strong hand, middle drive. And because Draymond Green was worried about the lob, okay, he just went straight to the basket quickly. And it didn't take much time for him to do that. And then going back on offense, Warriors, Draymond Green miss. Okay. And then they were able to tie it up eventually. And then the game went to overtime. And then James Harden just went nuts in overtime. He finished the game, 39 points, 10 assists. Kawhi also had a great game, 33, 6 and 7. Harden, 39, 7 and 10. Harden, back-to-back threes.
Yeah.
That 4-minute mark, which really spelled the difference of the outcome eventually. At the same time, this could turn out to be a blessing for the Warriors because if they win, because of the loss, they fall into the play-in.
Yep.
They go up against Memphis, who's been struggling for the last 2 to 3 months of beating an above 500 team.
And then the coaching situation that we just talked about.
Ja Morant throwing bombs or grenades.
Oh my God.
Okay, I mean visually, diba? But let's not forget about this. There's a mini history to this as well. Mini rivalry, chirping at each other. Draymond Green, Ja Morant. If you remember the last few
Even the dad got involved, right? T. Morant.
Yeah, si T. Morant. So it's been quite a disastrous second half of the season for Memphis. And for the Warriors, it's been a great second half after the Jimmy Butler trade, obviously. But there are concerns coming in because of, we talked about this. We saw Jimmy Butler
Natuhod siya.
injured his quad.
Yeah.
Natuhod siya. Steph Curry, the game before that, I think is jammed his right thumb.
Shooting hand.
His shooting hand. And then just only 2 to 3 days rest. They're still playing at home. But I was back to my point. If they win this game against Memphis, the matchup against Houston could favor them because obviously they have more experience. And then we may see the Lakers and the Warriors in the second round.
Going back to episode 1, tinanong kita, sino ba ang dapat iwasan ng Lakers?
OKC, I said.
And you
And
also
Denver.
said Denver.
Yes.
So if ever maghaharap itong LA at Denver, it's going to be in the conference finals na.
And that's gonna happen.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
you just heard it.
Yeah.
Christian is getting ahead of himself.
Guarantee!
Wow! A Charles Barkley guarantee by Christian.
Tagalog ng guarantee?
Luanzon. Oh, ano ba yung Tagalog ng guarantee?
Garantisado! Sigurado!
Okay. So
You know why?
oh,
Because we have the NBA supporting us. You don't believe me? Look at the Luka trade. How did that happen? Who did Dallas get? I don't know. Austin Reeves was not part of the deal. So thank you, NBA. I'm just kidding.
all right. Now let's break down the matchups. I know in episode 1, napag-usapan na natin yung East. The matchups were pretty much set. Now, magfo-focus tayo dito sa West, starting off with this play-in matchup between Sacramento and, by the way, Anthony Davis was traded for Luka. He is in Dallas. Ang tanong na lang dito is, kanino ka mas bilib? Kay AD o sa duo ni Zach LaVine at DeMar DeRozan na may kasama pang Domantas Sabonis?
Kay AD ako.
Kay AD
Former
ka.
Laker eh. And he almost put up a quadruple-double 2 games ago against the Raptors, I believe, where he had like 23, 12, 10, and 7 blocks.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good sign for them that they're, getting an AD like we used to know him. Obviously, unfortunate, wala si Kyrie. If Kyrie, if that injury did not happen, this Dallas team would be a different team.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be in the play-in.
Yeah. I'm going for Dallas because I think they're not going to beat OKC. But they could put a little drama into it because they're a big team. Now, OKC obviously has Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren. But that AD, Lively, and Gafford bigs. And PJ, you add to that PJ Washington.
Wait, hold on, partner. If they beat Sacramento, hindi pa sila lalaban sa OKC. So you're assuming that they're gonna beat either Golden State or Memphis.
They're going to beat Memphis.
Wow. So you're saying that Memphis is gonna beat Golden State in the play-in?
No. They're going to mananalo
Mananalo na Golden State.
Mananalo
Correct.
Golden State, which put them in the 7th seed.
Correct.
And then the loser of that will face the
Yeah.
winner of the 9 and 10. Wow, tama na naman ako. Okay.
You know what? I'm actually shocked because for the first time on the show, we are in agreement because I also think Dallas is gonna beat Sacramento. Hindi ako bilib sa Sacramento ngayon kasi
They've been too inconsistent.
they're like a ship without a captain.
The only
right
heartbreak
now.
here is that as much as we want to root for Coach Jimmy Alapag, okay, the reality is I think it's still going to be Dallas. But I'm rooting for Coach Jimmy. So,
all right. So the other play-in matchup, we're also in agreement. I think the Warriors are going to wipe out Memphis. So they will advance to the playoffs as the 7th seed. So that leaves Dallas versus Memphis. And yeah, man, we're in agreement again. I think Dallas is going to beat Memphis
Well,
and end up
you
as
woke
the
up
8th
on
seed.
the right side of the bed today.
Yeah. This is
Keep that bed, huh?
This is unbelievable. Okay, so let's get to our matchups. OKC, Dallas. Alam mo,
OKC in 5.
but there is a voice speaking to me right now saying that Dallas actually has a shot in this series.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know why,
I
but
think-
something is telling me
No,
na may
I
chance ang Dallas dito.
They could be swept. But
wow, swept.
no, I mean Dallas.
okay.
They could be swept,
Wow.
but it's gonna be a sweeping series, similar if you remember to. Oh, I wish I forgot the series between the Nuggets and the Lakers, where they got swept, but every game was close. That's what I mean. So sometimes you can't judge a series because of the because of the series itself, the playoff series. You gotta know, you gotta see each game. I think it's gonna be that way. Maybe one blowout game because of how good OKC dominating OKC has been, especially on the defensive end. But because of Dallas's size, the three-headed monsters at that center position, and then you add PJ Washington, make it 4.
Who's also big.
Who's also big.
And he's at the 3 actually.
So suddenly, I mean, you're looking at a matchup between Holmgren and AD.
Yeah.
Okay, now
And kakainin ng buhay ni AD si Chet Holmgren.
maybe, okay, it depends.
What? It depends.
It depends because
I would bet my life in a one-on-one match between AD and Chet. AD is gonna eat him alive.
he would. But what I mean by it depends because OKC has been really good, not because of only SGA.
Mhm.
Yeah, dun ako sa collective.
Okay.
And they've been so good defensively. Like I said, historic numbers.
Mhm.
Point differential of 13 to the season, and I think it's going to be a problem for them to score points without Kyrie.
Mhm.
So at best, OKC in 5. For the Mavs and for OKC, I think it's going to be a sweep.
Wow. Okay. So, like Christian Luanzon earlier in this episode, wherein he threw a little shade on Donovan Mitchell, we're gonna find out whether maraming fans ng OKC dito, because I'm gonna say that we're gonna see an upset. I think Dallas can beat OKC. I don't know.
That's not going to happen.
I just feel like
Guarantee.
mali, garantisado.
Garantisado.
Okay. My first pretender is OKC. Hindi pa ako believe sa OKC at Houston.
They're a contender.
Mas na-visualize ko yung LA and
I think
Denver
Houston.
in the
I think
conference.
Houston yung yung mga pretenders.
Okay.
Sa Tagalog dito ginagamit natin plastic. Yeah. Houston. But ang Thunder legit.
Oh, okay.
Legit.
All right.
Who's the MVP runner in Houston? Nobody.
Wala.
Nobody. That's what
Wala.
makes OKC legit. They have the best player in the league who's gonna win MVP. Garantisado.
The trending ka na naman sa TikTok, partner. Okay. So, we're pretty much we've covered OKC and Dallas, Houston and Golden State. Now things get interesting, my friend. The 3-6 matchup. Lakers and Wolves. I give you the floor.
Toot, toot, toot. Lakers in 5.
Wow! Wow! In 5. Okay.
Hindi, nanggagaya lang ako.
Sino ba yan? Yung KFC, UFC, Lakers in 5. Timberwolves, T-Wolves, Lakers in 5. Mr. Shannon Sharp.
Ant-Man, Superman, Batman, Lakers in 5.
Ano yung kanta? Superman, Batman, Wolverine, Lakers in 5. Okay, I agree with you, man. I think the Wolves are actually worse than they were last season. I did not like the trade wherein Karl Anthony Towns was traded to New York. I didn't like that at all. I thought they were building something big in Minnesota when you had Cat, Ant, and Rudy Gobert.
Right.
So
They didn't want to pay.
Yeah, this is
Go over the tax.
this is a weaker team than it was last year. So yeah, Lakers in 5.
At most 6, I would say. I mean, I think this series, kidding aside, I think it's going to be a great series, but it's going to boil down to the last 3 minutes of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have 3 of the best decision makers in the NBA. Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves. You're right, Austin Reeves.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and no matter what you say about AR, he's going to be a future All-Star. And that's one thing that not a lot of teams have. That's one thing that definitely Minnesota doesn't have. Si Anthony Edwards lang, tapos nawala pa si Cat, sabi mo nga.
Yeah.
No? So I think what's important for the Lakers is that to take Anthony Edwards out of rhythm the first quarter. I think he's going to try to score 15, 20 points. You know, he's been he took a leap this year, especially of shooting the ball from the outside. Wolves had been 8-1 in the last 9 games, although a lot of those games have been, below 500 teams. 40-point games, the last 2 games, I believe, for Ant before the playoffs. Leading the league in 3-point mades, 230, I think is the number. I think what's insane is, nag-tweet pa tong si, I don't have Twitter, si Malik Beasley, that you need 7, and then he actually made 7 to surpass that, no? And then his coach left him, even designed the play. It was a flare screen on the right wing. But, okay, I think it's going to boil down to Luka, LeBron, and Austin Reeves. Having those 3 ball creators, ball manipulators, scorers on the floor, it's just going to be too much for Minnesota, who only has Anthony Edwards.
Yep, 3 beats 1. And the shade on Rudy Gobert.
I didn't put any shade on. Yeah.
You
Luka did.
You didn't mention him.
Yeah, yun na yan.
Okay, this to me, Christian, is the most exciting first round matchup. Denver
Clippers.
versus Los Angeles. The Clippers. Oh my God.
For the first time, I said their team name. Yeah, Clippers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Woo. Okay, who you going with here?
I'm going for the Clippers.
Wow.
Look,
Is it just is
Look,
it because
look.
you hate Denver?
no. Yo, let me rephrase that. Let me explain to you.
Wow.
I think we talked about OKC of who I think is gonna make the Western Conference Finals. To me, between Houston and the Clippers, between the Nuggets and the Clippers, I think the Nuggets have a better chance of beating the Thunder.
Mm.
Okay, but in this series, okay, considering how terrific the Clippers have been, especially second half of the season, this series has been 2-2 between the Nuggets and the Clippers. Okay, it's important to take note. All those 4 games, Kawhi didn't play,
Yeah. But now he's playing and he
Yeah.
looks unbelievable. I am actually shocked.
and they have the same record. They finished the regular season 50-28. So where am I going at? To beat OKC again, sila yung magka-bracket eh.
Oh, yeah.
1-8.
Yeah.
I mean the second round, 1-8 and then 4-5,
Uh-huh.
right? Again, para sa mga viewers natin. Okay? Tingin ko mas magandang matchup sa OKC ang Denver. Pero mukhang mananalo ang Clippers dito. Sa Nuggets, they have depth. They have Kawhi, who is the best player right now on their team. Arguably, Harden's playing out of his mind. Think about it. They have 4 guys who can dominate. Norman Powell, who's had an all-star year,
Yeah.
has been great for them.
Yeah.
Ivica Zubac, the former Laker, I think he's going to be a difference maker. He's been terrific. Also an Iron Man.
Uh-huh.
Played 78 games out of the 82, I believe. Has had dominating performances. Against my Lakers, I think he had 23 and 18 in their last game. I think it's going to be interesting, kung kanino siya ima-match up. Because if he matches a 1-1 against Jokic, I don't know if that's good for them.
No, it's not.
It's not, right? It's never good for anyone. So then who do you put him on? You put him on Gordon, right? You put him on Gordon.
If you put him
He's
on
gonna
Gordon,
be-
who's
he-
going to
he-
guard Jokic?
He's going to be parked in the paint. So that means a smaller guy is going to guard Jokic, which could probably be Kawhi Leonard. Now, you look at Kawhi Leonard.
Oh my God.
They have Kawhi Leonard. This team has been such a great defensive team this year. 2 things. Jeff Van Gundy, they hired Jeff Van Gundy,
Yeah.
their lead defensive coach. They got Chris Dunn. They signed Derrick Jones. And then Kawhi Leonard has been looking like the Kawhi Leonard of old, playing 2-way. So James Harden, the thing is, James Harden, we all know the history of those,
Disappearing
disappearing act.
act
He
in
would
the
have in the playoffs. He would have nights. I mean, if that doesn't happen, and then Kawhi plays out of his mind,
Yeah.
even if Jamal Murray plays out of his mind, I don't know. This is a tough matchup for Denver.
So-
in a 7-game series.
So just by listening to you, nakapili na ako. And I am going to pick the Denver Nuggets. Kalimutan na natin na wala na si Mike Malone doon. I would rather bet on Jokic. I would rather bet on Murray. Christian Brown has improved so much. Gordon and MPJ and Russell Westbrook, I still believe in the guy. Mas tataya pa ako sa Denver kesa sa Los Angeles Clippers na pag mag-CR lang si Kawhi Leonard, di ka
hindi mo alam kung
sigurado.
babalik.
Hindi mo alam kung pagbalik niya, injured na. So, and yung Ben Simmons, di na babalik sa dati.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. But Kawhi playing 37 games, 26 points per game. That's really MVP form. You have a fair point because history speaks, yung mga sinabi mo.
It's not on the side
to
of the
Harden,
Clippers.
right? But I'm picking the Clippers in this series, assuming nothing happens to Kawhi and there's no scratching of the head games ni Harden.
Okay, so based on what you said, Christian, let's wrap.
It's gonna be 7 games.
Let's wrap this up in the West. You're predicting an OKC Lakers Western Conference Finals.
For sure.
Okay.
Garantisado!
Eto sabihin ko sa'yo we're babalikan natin to. We're gonna get flamed online. Okay lang. That's part of the job. I think it's gonna be Denver Golden State. West Finals.
This is the part direct where you cut. We don't want any negative. We don't want any negative vibes here on the show.
Eto, okay to. Maganda to. Magkaiba tayo. You think it's OKC Lakers West Finals?
Yes, sir.
I think it's gonna be Denver Golden State. Mark that. Yeah, Christian and I are putting ourselves on the line
And
for
the
you
Lakers
guys.
Celtics. That's what the
Lakers
NBA
Celtics.
wants.
Eto.
Ratings are down. We traded for Luka.
Hey,
The commissioner made it happen. Might as well go all the way. Lakers Celtics 2025 finals.
feeling ko Denver Boston in the finals. I think it's Denver Boston. I
The
mean,
thing about feelings, it's not always right.
I know, and sometimes if you trust your feelings, it will lead you.
The
to
only
places
feeling
that
you've been right about is the hot pot that we go to every time, our good friend's restaurant.
Yeah,
But that's the only feeling you've been right. Okay?
Okay, let's just do a fast break here on the East. Who's gonna appear in the final? Obviously, Boston. Okay, Boston. That's clear. Okay, they're the favorites here. Sino ang kanilang makakalaban? Who are the biggest pretenders here, and who's the real contender? Because I think that's pretty much the conversation here with the East.
You know what? Last year, I think you mentioned this earlier.
The
The Pacers made it to the Eastern Finals,
yeah.
right? I don't think they're making the Eastern Finals because I see Milwaukee, even without Damian Lillard.
Although they did say that he's trying to come back. Yeah.
but
So
I
kahit
mean-
wala si Dame.
Have you seen Giannis
Yeah, he's
playing the point guard?
He's been insane.
He's been insane. Here's the thing about the NBA. That's why, even though I think the Clippers are gonna, beat the Nuggets, but if the Nuggets prevail, if the Nuggets prevail and they match up against OKC, the thing about the Nuggets is that they have the best player in the world. So, that being said, Giannis, who's been arguably one of the top 3 players in the world the last 5-6 seasons. Anytime you have the best player in the series, you always have a chance. Hearing Doc Rivers, recent interviews, he really feels confident, and I know where he's coming from because he knows he has one of the top players in the world in Giannis. Ever since, he put the ball in Giannis's hands, we all know si Giannis, ganito na maglaro yan eh. Grab and go, meaning rebound, coast to coast. Now, not only grab and go, even in the half court, they give him the ball. And when they give him the ball, they discovered it opened up a lot of opportunities. I'm speaking X and O's now.
Mhm.
Handoff actions,
Mm.
pin down actions.
Mm-mm.
We're in. The guy inside the paint is dropped. And then he had one game, 20 assists. One game, 15 assists.
Wait, Giannis had 20 assists?
He did.
Wow.
He did.
That's news to me.
Yeah, it was against the Sixers 2 weeks ago.
Oh, I missed that.
It was only against the Sixers, the lowly Sixers. But 20 assists.
Wow.
That game inspired me so much when I played in our league.
That's got to be a career high, right?
When I played in our league, I had 13. So,
I believe that.
but my point is, when it opened up a lot of opportunities, nung ginawang point guard na si Giannis, because it allowed the others to step up. So I expect maybe a green, to have a game, to have 5 3-pointers. So I expect the Bucks. It wouldn't surprise me if the Bucks beat the Pacers.
Yeah,
Even though
me
they're
too.
the lower seeded team at the 5th seed.
Okay.
And without
So,
Damian Lillard.
Sa dami ng sinabi mo tungkol sa Milwaukee, you've been raving about them. Are you saying na ang Milwaukee ang makakalaban ng Boston sa Eastern Conference Finals, that they are going to get past the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Not garantisado.
Ako, it all hinges on Damian Lillard. Pag bumalik si Damian Lillard, tatalunin ng Milwaukee ang Cleveland. I'm gonna put it out there. I'm gonna put my name on the line.
Well, I
Pag
think
bumalik si Damian Lillard.
yeah, the thing about Indiana, it's been collective all season long. I think they're the only team having the starting five average in double figures. Even Obi Toppin, 10 points per game. So dyan papasok si Rick Carlisle in a small market city, and then maximizing everything, not being above the cap. But the history between those two teams, it's like a mini rivalry. It's an underrated series, in my opinion.
So, bottom line, Milwaukee pa rin. Pero Cleveland or Milwaukee? Make a choice because I made mine.
Cleveland.
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 Okay, Cleveland ka. Okay. Gumagawa lang po ako ng mga resibo dito.
Resibo.
Okay, and then just to wrap this up, I think it's gonna be a Denver-Boston finals.
Let me just say,
Christian
it's 1-0 so far in those receipts.
Okay.
Lakers ended up as the third seed. That's Luanzon 1, Rojas 0.
Wait, what did I say?
Huh?
Sorry. What did I say?
That's exactly my point. You didn't say anything. You've been playing it safe. Kaya ako ang nababash.
And with that wraps up our discussion about the pretenders and the contenders. Now we will pump the brakes a little bit and talk about...
Pretender.
Let's talk about the second half of our prospects for the next NBA draft.
Basketball is more than just the game. It's the culture, the players, and the stories behind every shot.
Anong pakiramdam na maglaro sa finals?
Paano nga ba talaga ang buhay ng isang pro player?
At anong mga kalokohan ang nangyayari sa dugout?
Lahat yan at marami pang iba pag-uusapan natin dito sa Basketboleros.
Kung mahal mo ang laro, mas lalo mong mamahalin ang podcast na to. Hosted by Ranidel de Ocampo and GB Labrador. Brought to you by the Arena Plus Network. Sama-sama sa arena.
You're still watching or listening to the Pinoy Step podcast. Maraming salamat sa lahat ng ating mga manonood, especially the ones who have been tuning in since day number 1. Anton Rojas pa rin po. Kasama si Christian Luanzon, and after that, intense discussion in full detail ng ating mga playoff matchups and even predictions. Now we will look ahead and get back to our discussion with regards to the upcoming NBA draft. Mix Gomez and I already talked about the top prospects during our previous episodes in Dylan Harper, Cooper Flag, of course. Now we will talk about the other guys and give some love dito sa mga iba pang prospects na ating NBA draft. Starting off with Colin Murray Boyles.
No, Colin Murray Boyles, he's a left-handed player.
Reminds me
19
of Julius Randle.
Yeah, a little bit. Medyo mas malapad lang, no? Especially as a 19-year-old sophomore. You know, almost 17 points per game, 8 boards, 2.4 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.3 blocks. There's a little bit of everything. From South Carolina, 6'7", 245. You know, comparison to a Yabusele. You know, doesn't really have an outside shot, but has a great touch inside the paint. He has an excellent feel for the game, good passing vision, and you know, might be a good compliment for the Spurs. Now, the Spurs right now, based on how they finish, you know, has a 6% chance of getting the number 1 pick. Now, if in order, you know, in terms of chances, they would be at the number 7. So, posibleng bumagsak dyan. No? Itong si Colin Murray Boyles. What I like about him is he's like a mini tank. He's a bulldozer. Loves the right block. Yan yung sweet spot niya. Right block, or kung nasa left side, nasa left wing, has those mini ISOs, and nakikita niyo yung nangyayari off ball, those 45 cuts, open weak side shooters. So that could be a compliment to Wemby because we all know Wemby can shoot the ball from the outside or can be in that dunker spot for a lob.
Yeah, he really reminds me of a Julius Randle. Julius Randle was a little bit more thick when he first came into the NBA. Now he's kind of slim with
Mhm.
Minnesota.
Yeah, when he was with
Yeah.
Kentucky.
Yeah, with Kentucky, he was burly.
Mhm.
So
Sila nila John Wall yan eh.
oh,
No? Inabot ba niya?
no.
Sino yan?
mas bata si Randall kesa kay John Wall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, si John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins yung kasama.
Yo, there you go.
Yeah, sina
Siya yung
Patrick
nasa isip
Patterson,
ko.
Eric
Oh,
Bledsoe.
right,
yeah.
right.
But yeah, the burliness. All right, let's go to the next guy. Derek Queen, 20 years old from Maryland. I was watching his highlights. Nababagalan ako sa kanya. To me, he moves too slow for the NBA level. And he is a very poor man's version of Carl Anthony Towns.
Yeah, but the upside of him is that with his size, he has nimble feet, meaning
Mm.
agile and fast. Great hands, high skill level. He has a unique offensive skill set. To your point, might struggle at the NBA level.
Yeah.
I
feel
think
like
he's
he's a project.
yeah, but his notable performance was a game against Michigan, 31 points in the Big Ten, and it was the first by any Maryland Terrapins ang tawag sa team nila.
Mhm.
The first by a Maryland player since 2013. So he's a guy who could stretch the floor. Unlike si Colin Boyd, so he could stretch the floor. Good skill set, offensive skill set. Could be a liability defensively.
Mm.
So it really depends kung sino rin yung magpipick sa kanya. Maybe the Houston Rockets, Şengün is there.
Mhm.
And all the other pieces, the Thompsons, he could be a good fit there. It really depends on what happens this season sa Houston.
Mhm.
They might make some trades if it's an early first round exit, which I see happening. Okay, if it's against the Warriors, so it depends.
Let's go to the next guy because to me, he's the most exciting prospect, at least in this part of our list. The Dookie, 7'2". I hope I'm gonna
Is
say
he?
his name right. Yeah, he's 7'2".
Is he the most exciting? Maybe.
Dito sa listahan
Sa
natin,
listahan natin? No,
He got so much lobs from Cooper Flag.
He did.
He needs to play with a guy like Cooper Flag who can play the 4 or the 3
Right.
and draws defenders because 7'2" with this kind of wingspan. Again, I hope I'm gonna say his name right. Kaman Maluwach. Okay?
Maluwach, yeah, you got
Maluwach
it
is
right.
correct, but the Kaman,
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
18 years old. He's a lob threat. He needs to play with a guy who can draw defenders like Cooper Flag because that's where he was really effective when he played for the Duke Blue Devils.
Again, it would be a situational thing, just like
Mm-hmm.
Lively. He reminds me of Derek Lively, who also came from Duke. Okay, the only difference is, etong si Maluwach, hails from South Sudan. Both a lob threat. Okay, excellent screener. Okay, and impacts defense. Now in the tournament, 5 games with Duke, averaged about 11 points, 5 boards. But that Duke team was a stacked team. It was projected to be the champs until the collapse in the Final Four. But ang maganda dito, just like what I mentioned, two-way player, lob threat, it doesn't block many shots, but can make an impact of altering shots defensively. So I think he's going to be drafted in the first round, okay? Maybe in the 10 to 15 range.
Laki.
Maybe in
7'2"
okay. Projection could be Portland, but they have Klingon already.
Aiton. They have Aiton, right?
Aiton and
Yeah.
Klingon, which they drafted last year.
Mm.
So unless they make some moves and then they still want to go younger, it would depend.
Yeah, and he's not gonna be effective right away the way things look. Unless, of course, he ends up in a situation where wala silang centro and they need a big body in the
Alam mo
middle.
saan ko siya gusto?
Oh,
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
He could be a young Capella. He could benefit.
Yeah, Capella's up there in age already.
He could benefit from Trae Young.
Mm.
And, Atlanta right now, 0.5% in terms of the number 1 pick. It really depends.
And I think Ricochet is gonna the number one.
He's going to
pick.
blossom eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, as a solid NBA player, maybe all-star at best, but I like Ricochet.
All right, let's go to the next guy. And the projection is he will be drafted by the Chicago Bulls if the percentages come into play.
Yeah.
Kasparas Yakushonis.
Yakushonis, yeah.
Yakushonis.
From Lithuania.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's a crafty guard, shot maker, and you would think mga ish yung dulo, no? Automatic shooter. Well, he's a shooter, but you know, he's more of a volume shooter at times, more of a shot maker.
Yeah.
He would have games wherein he would force the issue. Really loves that step back jumper. That's why he's more of a shot maker. Can either go step back left or step back right. Average 16 points, almost 6 rebounds, 5 assists. And he's big for his size at 6'5". Projected to go with Chicago, which I'm not sure it's going to happen because
Daming point guard doon.
they just signed Lonzo Ball to
Yeah.
an extension.
And Kobe White is playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
You've got Josh Giddey there.
Josh Giddey, those are
Yeah.
3
Yeah.
dominant ball handlers. I'm not sure if Chicago is the right destination for him. Maybe Charlotte, especially if they're looking to move. There's been rumors about
Yep.
LaMelo Ball.
Yep.
Who knows?
I heard Orlando.
Yeah, maybe. So, I don't know. Anything can happen during draft day.
Yeah. Yakushonis, nung pinapanood ko siya, parang ang liit niya tignan sa TV. That's why I'm surprised he's listed at 6'5", 6'6".
Yeah.
But my vision for him is he could be a good NBA backup if he ends up in the right situation.
Right. I mean, parang Pritchard, of the Celtics. And, to my point earlier, shot the ball 47% field goal, pero sa 3 points, less than 33%.
All right, partner, I'm gonna give you the floor with regards to this because bago nagsimula yung ating recording today, ito yung pinag-usapan natin. Surprisingly, out of all the names on the list,
Carter Bryant.
Carter Bryant.
Yeah.
Okay, why? Why
Why
are you
is it
so
as a
enamored?
surprise?
Why are you so enamored?
It just so happened that
Kapangalan.
his surname is Bryant. When I was, doing my research and, watching him, how, arguably the most, maybe top 5 most athletic.
He's an athlete.
He's an athlete, definitely.
Wingspan is off the charts.
I see him as like a 3-and-D guy in the NBA, and you can make a living as a 3-and-D guy. The thing is, with him as a 3-and-D, he's an excellent finisher
Yeah.
on the break. Now, the numbers are not staggering. I mean, less than 7 points per game, 4 boards, 1 assist in 90 minutes. Right-handed player from Arizona. He is 6'8", 225. Okay? And hasn't been the biggest name of the draft. But what you're getting here is an absolute athlete. He's a spot-up shooter. Okay? That means he could shoot over you. And
he also has great defensive instincts. I want to.
he does with those long arms. And comes from a great program, obviously Arizona, Richard Jefferson, Gilbert Arenas, to name a few. And I think he's gonna be an under the radar kind of thing. Parang si Cam Whitmore of the Rockets. Could be drafted maybe 18th, 19th, but can be really good kung sino man ang kumuha sa kanya.
The next guy on our list, Christian might like his name, but kulang lang ng H. Noah Esenge.
Yeah. The name of my firstborn. Yeah, Noah Esenge. What you're drafting here is potential. The thing is, born 2006. So, hindi nalalayo din sa panganay ko na was born 2008. 18 years old, right-handed player from France.
Yeah.
6'10".
Ang daming prospects from France ngayon.
Grabe. Kaya nga, yung next Olympics, I think they're gonna be really scary. Like, I mean, they put a scare on the US team who had Durant,
Yeah.
Curry, and LeBron. But what you're drafting here is a super long combo forward with a ton of upside. So what you're drafting is potential, yung upside niya. And raw potential, but management, whoever drafts him, it's gonna have to be patient with him. Maybe play in the G League.
Yeah.
First part of the season, maybe second half of the season.
He needs to end up in a city where there's good food and good steak. para magkaroon ng laman.
Oh,
Because
medyo
to me,
home grim, medyo home grim yung
oh,
frame
he's
nito
too
eh.
skinny right now. Okay. Jace Richardson, lefty. Another lefty, 19 years old. He can hit the three, natural too, but he seems a little bit too
Combo
small
guard.
for his position in the NBA.
Reminds me of a Reggie Jackson and a Bobby Jackson. More of a Bobby Jackson. You remember Bobby Jackson?
Yeah, Bobby Jackson.
Sacramento Kings.
Yeah. That
I mean,
guy
he was a
pest.
point guard, but he could get you buckets.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, I mean, I dreaded etong si Bobby Jackson, even though the Lakers would win the series against the Kings mid-2000s. More like a Bobby Jackson, point guard, but loves to score the basketball. 19-year-old freshman, average 11 points, 3 boards, less than 2 assists. So yung at the point guard, less than 2 assists, alam mo, mas nakalinya sa scoring. The thing about him though is that his efficiency field goal rating is close to 60%. Mataas yun. No?
Yep.
And, for our viewers, the efficiency field goal rating, that metric,
That's high for a shooter.
that's high for a shooter. So, 4 out of 10 field goals sa 2-point shot, okay, that's 40%. Pero pag 4 out of 10 sa 3 points, sa EFG, that's 60%. Because obviously, you get 12 points out of it instead of 8. So, yun yung pagka-compute doon. Just for our viewers. So, the thing is, with the NBA, a lot of teams right now lean on the numbers. So, baka yan ang tignan sa kanya. Possibly. Maybe like a Daryl Morey.
Daryl Morey again.
I would love to say David Griffin, pero pelitan na yata si David Griffin.
Tsaka allergic na ata si Daryl Morey sa mga kaliwete.
Yeah. That's a great point.
Okay, last player on the list, my friend. Asa Newell, projected to be drafted by the San Antonio Spurs. This guy plays strictly in the paint, and experts are comparing him to Joakim Noah.
That's a great comparison because let's not forget, Joakim Noah was an outstanding defender, one of the MVP candidates one season. If you remember, it was number 3, I believe. This was in 2016.
Akala ko sasabihin mo na naman Joakim Noah, the
Kapangalan
guy.
ng panganay ko.
Hindi, the guy who threw shade on Cleveland.
Cleveland. Yeah. But 19-year-old freshman, in basketball, there's a thing in scoring, 3-level scorer. I think he's a 3-level screener. Okay.
I've never heard that before.
Well, you've heard that from me first.
I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, a 3-level screener is a guy who could DSP, deep roll, short roll, and pop. Okay? And having that ability to do those 3, meaning you can do it from inside, you can from inside finish at the rim on the deep roll. Short roll, you can be a decision maker, you have that mid-range, and you can pop from the 3, which means you have the range to shoot from the outside. He has those 3 as a screener. So I think in the NBA, he can be NBA ready. 15.3 points per game, 7 rebounds with Georgia. Okay, not so much assists in almost 30 minutes of play. Shooting the ball 50% from the field, less than 30% from 3. Okay, something he has to work on. And then 70% from the line. Okay, he's a nice mix of athletic tools, talent, and floor spacing. That's the key. The way you space the floor in the NBA, if you could space the floor, look at Al Horford, Brook Lopez, how they have transformed their game latter part of the years. They're still in the NBA and they're still effective. Ginagamit pa rin because of that floor spacing ability.
That wraps up our discussion with regards to the second part of our NBA prospects in the upcoming NBA draft. Before we end though, I just want to get Christian Luanzon's thoughts on Cooper Flagg. Will he enter the draft or will he come back to Duke? I wasn't able to ask you this because it was Mix Gomez on the show last week. Just want to get your quick thoughts with regards to that because obviously Cooper Flagg is the consensus number 1 guy.
Looking at the reports, it would really depend on kung sino yung number 1 pick.
Oh.
Diba? But I think,
San Antonio.
and he has until May 29. That's a deadline. Okay? But I think, okay, I know the situation in the collegiate scene has changed with the NIL players being paid, and gotta be happy for them.
Yeah.
But this is NBA money, and I think he's ready for the NBA. I've seen this happen in a local stage wherein players have delayed their drafts, 1 year, and then most of the time yung draft stock nila bumababa. So why take that risk? Injuries, number one. Okay? And then people have seen you play in the big stage in the tournament already, even though you fell short, but he was outstanding in the tournament. I think he should enter the draft, be the number one pick, kahit sino man yun, even though it's the Washington Bullets or, sorry, Wizards. That was intentional. Don't bash me on that.
Teka, so Washington ka kasi sinabi ni Mix Gomez,
Utah?
San Antonio, sinabi ko Charlotte.
Hey, it could be OKC.
Ang guess, OKC? Kasi may trade. Meron silang picks.
Yeah. I mean,
may ganun pa pala.
It could be OKC.
My God, Sam Presti.
I don't know how. We would have to read through it, but it could be OKC. There's a slim chance.
Thank you, Paul George, maybe.
Because of that draft. Because of that trade. Excuse me.
All
No, I think Cooper Flag should go in, nonetheless.
Okay, to the Washington Bullets, according to Christian. That wraps up our discussion on the second half of our NBA top prospects on the Pinoy Step podcast.
Every champion has a story. And behind every success, there's a journey.
Alam mo yung feeling na parang gusto mong sumuko pero lumalaban ka pa rin?
Dahil sa support system, sa passion, at syempre sa sariling determinasyon. Lahat tayo may kwento. And here, we share ours with you.
PB&J is all about the struggles, the wins, and the journey in between. PB&J, Peanut Butter and Jella. Brought to you by Arena Plus Network. Sama-sama sa Arena.
So with that, maraming salamat po sa lahat ng aming manonood sa Pinoy Step Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, whether it is you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or TikTok, and of course on Instagram. Please share it to your family. Please share it to your friends. Please locate this man. Please tag him.
Wait. I have my final
Okay,
gesture.
yes. Okay. Woo! Woo! Uy, let us know if anybody can find the video.
Meron talaga yun. Isa kay Jordan, isa kay Kobe.
Please,
Meron talaga yun.
send it to us, guys. All right? So for Christian Luanzon, my name is Anton Rojas. Nagsasabing maraming salamat po sa inyong pagtutok sa Pinoy Step Podcast Sama-sama sa Arena.
The views and opinions expressed by the podcast creators, hosts, and guests do not necessarily reflect the official policy and position of Arena Plus Sportsbook, the hosts of the program, or other programs of the network. Any content provided by the people on the podcast are of their own opinion and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything.